Hello and welcome to Inner GPS Gurus. How are you all? Hope you are doing well and you want to progress more in your Kundalini awakening journey in a dynamic way. Today, the topic is that I will give clarity completely in different dimensions, and the topic is Kundalini awakening permanent? So, if you want to understand it completely, then pay full attention to what I am explaining it to you so that you understand your intensity of Kundalini if you are going through Kundalini awakening. So this video is exclusively for my students who are going through Kundalini awakening and have already diagnosed themselves through me. And at the same time, this video will help those who are going through Kundalini awakening but not yet sure whether they are going through Kundalini awakening or not. So, if you are not going through Kundalini awakening, then you can kindly skip this video. Alright? So, let me explain to you the first dimension of understanding this topic. Is Kundalini awakening temporary or permanent? First of all, you must understand that if you are going through Kundalini awakening, then it has to be a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. If you have tried some efforts by doing some yoga, meditation, and suddenly your Kundalini has awakened, then it is a temporary Kundalini awakening and it is not permanent. But if you are going through Kundalini awakening due to spontaneous Kundalini awakening, then it is a permanent Kundalini awakening, and Kundalini cannot go back to its original state of dormancy and you cannot reverse the process. You must understand that when Kundalini awakens spontaneously, the prime purpose of Kundalini is to free you. Mostly Kundalini awakens in the last birth when you are going to be free spiritually, and Kundalini has the purpose to unblock all your chakras, to make you a pure individual, to make you an independent entity, to make you someone who is powerful. So, you must understand that if Kundalini has happened in you spontaneously, then it will be a permanent process and also it will have the impact of freeing you. So, Kundalini awakening in you spontaneously will lead to your evolutionary journey. Kundalini awakening will be permanent if you take the efforts to process Kundalini from one chakra to another chakra to the next chakra, and you clear all the karmas, unblock all the karmic settlements in your mind, body, get purified through your vikaras, vasanas, the tendencies and your patterns stored in your subtle body, and you take the effort to be one with Kundalini in the Kundalini awakening journey, if you want the process to be a permanent one. For that clarity of having a permanent Kundalini awakening, you must need a guru who will help you process Kundalini through all the chakras, and you will be powerful throughout the journey because the guru will help you to process the exact steps required to purify your energy channels, to make you into an integrated individual, and also to transform you into a evolved person who is powerful the way Kundalini wants you to be. But if you are taking some efforts to awaken Kundalini through yoga, meditation, and the sudden awakening of Kundalini may lead to Kundalini psychosis, when Kundalini may shift not to the Sushumna but to the Ira or Pingla Nadi, and you may suffer as a result of the Kundalini psychosis in many ways. So Kundalini awakening is permanent if it is spontaneous, but you don't try to awaken Kundalini by whatever efforts you are taking, because that could be a dangerous step from you and you may suffer a lot. So my advice to you is, don't ever try to awaken Kundalini, but if it has awakened in you, then do meet us. We are EnergyPS Gurus and the world's #1 Kundalini Masters with spiritual powers. When you meet us, all the details are mentioned in the description. Our team's email ID is mentioned. You can contact us and have clarity on how to contact us online and offline both. So, let me move on to the next dimension of this topic, and the question you might be having regarding this is Kundalini awakening a one-time process or it's a temporary process? So the next dimension is Kundalini awakening an event, one-time event or a continuous process? You need to understand how Kundalini functions in you to understand whether it is a one-time event or a continuous process. The direct answer to this question is Kundalini awakening is a continuous process. It is not a one-time event. It is not a one-time event because Kundalini awakens from your root chakra and it travels through your sacral chakra, then to solar plexus region, clearing all the karmas at that chakra, and then Kundalini moves to the upper chakra, to the heart chakra, thereafter throat chakra. From there it travels to third eye, and from there to crown chakra and pierces crown chakra and merge with universal consciousness. Now this Kundalini energy is an electrified energy like volcanic eruption happening when it awakens from your root chakra, and that volcanic eruption continues throughout the journey from the moment it awakens from your root chakra till the moment it pierces the crown chakra and becomes one with the universal consciousness. This process takes longer duration of time and it is not happening in a one-time event. For example, the event may happen, the Kundalini may happen, Kundalini awakening may happen in one event. Maybe a sudden awakening may happen to you. But when we talk about Kundalini awakening, it denotes the entire process. Kundalini awakening from root chakra to the crown chakra, the entire process may take maybe a few years or a decade or more than a decade. In normal condition, if you have burnt most of the karmas in your past birth, then there is a possibility, and which is rare possibility, that you may have a sudden Kundalini awakening in your childhood, and maybe in a few years you have traveled, means your Kundalini has traveled all the chakras and made you free at an early age. But if your karmas are not burnt in the past birth and in this birth, this is your last birth, and you have accumulated karmas to be cleared, then there is a possibility it may take a few years or a few decades, because Kundalini needs certain conditions for its processing, and if it is not getting those conditions in terms of your sadhana, in terms of your external preparation, whether you are too much engaged in the metrics or you are doing the meditative practices or sadhana required to process Kundalini, all these things will determine whether you are processing Kundalini, and that will determine how beautifully or gracefully you complete the entire process of Kundalini. So, it may appear like a one-time event, but it is not so when it comes to doing the entire process of Kundalini that involves self-realization, self-stabilization, and self-expression. When we talk about self-realization, it means that Kundalini awakens until the point you reach the stage of self-realization. The Kundalini will be a continuous journey. It will move from one chakra to another chakra, and that is how you will be free from the karmic blockages of each chakra. When it comes to self-stabilization, then the process will be conducted in the presence of the Guru. After self-realization, if you do not find a Guru, self-realization means you are enlightened. And at this stage, what happens? You are identified with the spiritual ego or spiritual belief of being a spiritual person. At this stage, most people get lost in the journey. And my advice to you is, if you are an enlightened person already and you did not find a Guru and Kundalini awakened in you and you had that experience of self-realization, then do find a Guru. And if you do not have any Guru, live Guru, then meet us. We are the Kundalini masters and the Gurus who will process your journey further. You need certain kind of sadhana to be stabilized in self-realization. Otherwise, you will go back to your previous self. It is permanent Kundalini awakening, but to remain permanent in freedom, you need certain sadhanas that we will tell you. We teach our students, most of our students who are enlightened, we teach them the required sadhana exclusively meant for them, and this helps them a lot to become an integrated, powerful individual who will work confidently in this world after becoming enlightened. Otherwise, what happens? Most enlightened beings, they wander in the world without any purpose, because it is not the nature of Kundalini to keep you stagnant at one place. How long can you remain in the state of bliss, peace, joy, love? Because you are not meant to be stagnant. Kundalini is the energy of movement. Kundalini itself is the dynamic energy. So she wants you to become a creative, integrated, powerful, confident man, an individual who will work something for this entire earth or the energy field where she will be expressing herself. And for that you need certain kind of sadhana. So when you are continuously moving with the Kundalini energy, you realize that you cannot stay in the self-realization state for longer duration, and you need more advanced level of sadhana to move forward. So, Guru will help you to take you to the level of self expression. We take you to the level of self-expression. If you want yourself to be powerful, then you can meet us and get yourself empowered. After the enlightenment stage, we will teach you the required sadhana, and if you are going to get some spiritual powers, then we will teach you about that as well. What sadhana, which sadhana you can do so that you get the spiritual powers and get the clarity about your next life after freedom. Alright, so let's move on to the next dimension of understanding this topic, and the topic is how long does it takes for the Kundalini to be finished, and how your third eye is open, how you can open your third eye. Now understand that there is not a single point or the single answer to determine whether what time will be required for the Kundalini to be finished. It is not a general answer, because understand that the evolutionary process that you are going through is a longer period, and it expands, it's totally spreads over a period of millions of years, and you take many lives before you become free. If Kundalini has awakened in you in this birth, then understand that you are the luckiest one, you are the most fortunate one. So you should get affiliated towards the divine energies, the powerful energies of the universe. You should try your best to leave the matrix. You should try your best to minimize your habits to become a simple human being. If you do the efforts to become simple, unmask yourself, leave your personality, leave your ego, then the Kundalini awakening process will be finished soon. But for that also you need a master, a guru, a Kundalini master like us, who will help you process Kundalini throughout your journey. Now, it may take, based on where it is or what kind of karmas you have, it may take a few days, a few weeks or a few months for the entire process to be finished. There is no set formula, there is no set time limit to complete your Kundalini. That is why we always guide our students to meet once a month to take the required guidance, take the required powerful Shaktipat, energy transmission from us, so that your Kundalini moves faster. For example, if your Kundalini has awakened and it is in the heart chakra, it is blocked in the heart chakra, when you meet us, we will unblock your heart chakra through powerful Shaktipat and energy transmission. I give online Shaktipat to unblock your energies. First of all, to diagnose you where you are, to heal you, to coach you. And when you meet us physically, when our students meet us physically, what we do, I do the same. I diagnose you, I coach you, I heal you. And IGG Avadut, he is the most powerful master, he is the most powerful man, he is the most powerful divine power with the highest Shaktipat power to free you. He can take you to the state of Samadhi, he can take you to the state of enlightenment, and he can take you to the state of pure consciousness. And from there, you will know where you are. He will take you to astral travel and do the astral projection, that is out of the body experience you can have when you take Shaktipat from IGG Avadut physically. If you have any questions or doubts about how long will you take to complete or your Kundalini to be finished, then you can definitely contact us and get the clarity. Don't be in doubt, and you don't need to suffer. You just need to understand that if you contact us, you will be benefited, because you will know the real journey that you are going through. You will know the intensity of Kundalini you are going through, and it will help you a lot. If you are in doubt, then it will definitely do the energy loss for you, and it will waste your time, life. Kundalini in your last birth is a boon, because if you waste your life, if you waste your time, then it may not finish in this birth as well. And how long does it take for the third eye to be opened? It depends again. It depends what kind of blockages you have in the lower chakras. Third eye can be opened. We can open the third eye by activating your third eye, by activating your inner GPS, by activating your intuitive powers. But for that, your lower, all the chakras need to be unblocked. If your third eye is opened, but your other chakras are still unblocked, the lower chakras are still blocked, then there is a possibility that you may not be having the power to use your third eye intuitive powers in your life. All the time your mind will create blockages, and all the time your mind will act as an obstacle to your journey. So my suggestion to you is, if you want to get your Kundalini to be finished and live a new life, then do contact us and be free. So the next dimension of understanding this topic, is Kundalini awakening permanent? The next dimension is, how long does the Kundalini awakening last? Kundalini awakening may last from 1 year period to maybe a few decades. It may extend to 3 to 4 decades as well. It depends on how well you are prepared for processing Kundalini. If you are having highest ego, if you are identified too much with something, if you have that personality identification, if you have that acquired self too rigid, then it may take longer duration of time. There are many spiritual seekers who do meditation, sadhana for years, for decades, but they have not become free. When they come to us at the age of 60, 70, they are carrying high spiritual ego. They are carrying high intensity of identifying with the knowledge of having spiritual wisdom acquired by someone else, and they are filled with that knowledge. It is not your wisdom. It is not your understanding of life. It is not your truth. You have collected all the information from the scriptures or studying spiritual scriptures, and collected all the information, and it has become like a garbage in your mind, and it has become a part of your personality. So if you want your Kundalini to be finished, to be completed well with full integration, so that you realize yourself, who you are, so that you get back to your center, your source, your consciousness, and you become one with the super consciousness, then drop your ego, drop your identification with whatever you know, unlearn everything, and start the new dimension of living life by following your feelings, by following your inner GPS. what Kundalini wants from you. And how does Kundalini rewards you? Kundalini wants you to be free from all the bondages that you have created over millions of lives by being driven by your mind, and the mind is driven by desires and fear. So Kundalini wants you to be free from your desires and fear and live a life of a free, powerful, integrated and pure energy. Life is beautiful. This is what Kundalini wants to teach you. You, the life, is beautiful. The life force in you is full of higher energies, but you are operating at a lower energy because of the negative energies, because of the dense energies of vikaras, vasanas, the desires, fear, guilt, shame, all the lower energies, jealousy, anger, all this keep you down. So, if you want your Kundalini to be a permanent process and not a fluke, then you should give your life, give your time, money and investment in order to process Kundalini, facilitate Kundalini, because this is your only purpose, to be free, to be liberated and not become a slave of the matrix, not become a slave of the society, not become a slave of the mind. So all your efforts should be in this direction, and if you are lost, if you are an orphan in the Kundalini awakening journey, then we are here, Inner GPS Gurus, the most powerful Gurus, to help you, to uplift you, to uproot all your problems. Only if you are surrendered, a true mumukshu, whose only purpose is to be free, the highest desire that you should have should be to be free from the karmic cycle of birth and death and operate as a free person. So, if you have any more questions related to your Kundalini awakening journey, you can contact us for a personal coaching and you can get the clarity, whatever is required. It is a paid coaching session, both online and offline, and all the details you will get once you get in touch with us. All right. So, my blessings and power to you, and live happily and stay a blessed life. That's all for today. Bye-bye.